singing?
Well, we're learning hymns.
Oh,
History on the hill.
history on the hymns. Yeah, summer series. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So you've been mowing some
Oh yeah, I
for a
mowed.
living?
Well, I mowed 5 lots. My lady next door, I mowed their yard.
I was gonna say you just come from that, didn't you? That's what you retired from. You're not supposed to get.
Well, I enjoy it,
Yeah,
but I'm not. I sold off one mower.
yeah. A little loss. This is a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I run right across the one golf course lane mower.
Yeah,
I don't mind doing it.
yeah.
But
Oh, hey, no
I'm just
doubt.
not gonna buy another trailer.
No.
I'll set up, lock them all up.
So you just do it right there by the house.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Good evening. Can you hear that?
Yeah,
All right. That loud enough?
yeah.
You hear me, Jimmy?
I can hear you.
Okay. How are your tomatoes growing?
Sitting over here to keep this party animal down.
You got tomatoes on them? Spray paint.
Drop something.
My brain.
I have blooms on my tomato.
You got what?
Blooms,
That explains a lot.
yeah.
Your outline's always blank. Right?
All right. Be turning to the book of Joshua. You hear that all right, Mary Helen?
I'm sorry?
You hear that all right, or does it need to go up a little bit?
A little louder would be nice.
Okay.
You want it turned up?
It don't sound like
Yeah. It's Mike, M-I-K-E, Mike. And we'll be back in the book and closing out on the book of Joshua. And so tonight what I want you to do is to turn to the book of Joshua, the 17th chapter. That's sounding better. Right about there, Mary? Okay, right there. All right, we had a dear sister place membership, Brenda Lockhart, who is requesting prayers for her 2-year-old granddaughter who is now at Children's Hospital diagnosed with COVID.
she's had COVID, but she's got pneumonia now.
COVID, and now she's got pneumonia. Okay, so continue. She lays it right back there, very back. Helen Carter is still not feeling well. She had the ultrasound yesterday, but has not received any results. Mary Sue is struggling with a sciatic nerve pain. Don't forget the wedding shower table back there for Caitlin and Tana. Jim Lehman and Liz are going to have a 50th anniversary here Sunday from 2 o'clock until 4 o'clock.
Debbie's having carpal tunnel syndrome surgery next week.
Who?
Nail in the coffin.
Doing it.
Wife. I told her to talk to you first.
You quit mowing the yard, pulling weeds, that's a husband's job.
We're a pair, we're a team.
Well, Jerry keeps and he sends me a passage of scripture about fruit trees not bearing for 3 years. I put out a peach and a plum, and I started with about 6 peaches this year. 5 fell off, and reminds me of the song, what was it, a dozen beer bottles hanging on the wall, 1 fell off, and they all said whatever it was. Well, I got 1 peach left. and I've got one plum. And so I sit out there with my shotgun at nighttime, and if anything moves, I shoot it. All right. The others is the Ladies' Wednesday Bible class. We'll meet June the 8th at 10 o'clock. This will be the last class until August. No quilting until August. And next week, our summer series starts, and it is on hymns, the history of hymns. And I don't know if you know it or not, but the Church of Christ is not unusual when it comes to the non-instrument. Brethren, I don't know whether we know it or not, and we may go into this, I don't know, but no church whatsoever used to have instrumental music. And there are some great famous sayings by the leaders of the denominations who, talk about that it would never happen. So really, it's not that we're off base or anything. We're just true to the beginning. And we'll look at that. And does it make a difference? Yes, it does make a difference. I believe I can strongly defend from the Scriptures the non-use of an instrument as is that which pleases God. From the Old Testament to the New Testament, there's a big difference. And so I'll start the series with an introduction to the hymns. And there's a lot of things that we decide to be. Who decides if it's a salvation issue or not? Because I hear that all the time. Well, using an instrument or not using it, it's just not a salvation issue. Who decides what is a salvation issue?
God does.
The one who judges it. It's not a salvation issue to me. And by the way, we're living in a time now where my opinion trumps your truth. That's just the world we live in. They just push the truth aside, and the reason they cancel you or don't like you is because your opinion doesn't match theirs. We're living in a crazy time, and it starts in our university, and it's now gone down to our kindergarten. What does that have to do with the book of Joshua? Nothing. It has to do with God. All right, so we looked at Joshua. Someone read nice and loud Joshua 17 and verse 18. And what we're looking at is living our lives to capacity.
But the mountain shall be thine.
What?
The mountain shall be thine.
The mountains are going to be yours. Who said that? And who commanded him to say that? God. So they came and they looked at the land. They were the 2.5 tribes that went across the Jordan River, helped them do the fighting, and then they came back and they said, we're a mighty people. Well, they weren't. They were one of the smallest tribes. Both of them together didn't even add up to the tribe of Dan. And so here they are. They're egotistical. They're looking at themselves, and they're saying, we are much bigger than the task that you have given us. You ever seen a big fish in a small pond? I didn't until Bob Beeler caught it down at Scuba. It was enormous. Some people are not satisfied with being a fish in the pond. They got to be the big fish in the small pond. And that's what I think about when I think about this tribe who looks and says, you see what what wasteland you have given us? We are so much better than this.
Don't you imagine that went back to the fact that they were the sons of Joseph, and Joseph was the one who got them into Egypt in the first place, got them the best part of the land, which is the Atlantic Ocean, and for years they were probably pretty preeminent because they had their own government while they were in Egypt before the one who came along that got Joseph. They ruled themselves in Egypt.
Okay?
So, because Daddy was the one who got all that, just like when you go to a church where one guy's everything for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you gotta treat us different.
Okay? And I'm sure they thought they were special. We hear that in the church. Well, my parents did that, my parents did this, and we want to rest on their faith. We want to be recognized and privileges passed down to us. And I had that in Florida with the original family. They just thought they owned everything. God was just not a part of the picture. And so you've got these people who look at the land. They are prideful. They say, we are a mighty people. And look, in this land you have, what'd you say? Huh? They have woods. What else do they have? Enemies, valleys, mountains.
They must have done a good job of cutting the trees down, 'cause ain't none there now.
Yeah, that is the most barren. All right, keep reading, John.
For it is a wood, and thou shalt cut it down, and the outgoings of it shall be thine. And thou shalt drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron shields, and though they be strong.
All right. What do you think the first problem with the children of Joseph was? Fear?
There's Canaanites in our land, and they've got iron shields, and there's nothing we can do about that. So that cuts out this part of the property that he's given us. Now we got to kill full of trees, and that ain't no good. So
But
what are you going to do for us?
we are a what?
We're a mighty people.
We're a mighty people. God says what?
If you're a mighty people, cut the trees down and take the land.
Cut the trees down. And the produce of that will be yours. On those mountains, 2,500 feet, but they really weren't mountains. There were plateaus that were extremely rich. And then you've got enemies. Show me an environment where God's children have ever lived that we don't have enemies. Who are our enemies? I mean, in 2022, who are our enemies? We're our own enemies. And I think that's the case here. When I think about Proverbs chapter 6, beginning in 16, there are 6 things that God hates. Yea, 7 are an abomination. Man, when you read that word abomination, it ought to capture your attention. God's trying to get theirs. A haughty spirit or eye. What is a haughty spirit or a haughty eye? Arrogant. Who does it look at? A haughty spirit looks at me and it judges everybody else by my over-elevated, egocentric spirit. No one can do it like, get out of the way and let me handle it, and it'll be handled right.
Feel like it goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, though. They had an enemy there, the serpent, and he played on their egos.
Okay? And it goes, we could also use that. Where, supposedly in our thinking, where did the serpent come from? All right, God created all things. Even angels are created beings. When people die and go to heaven, they are not angels. That's our invention. Our children die and they go to heaven and they become angels. That's not biblical. We are saints, and when we go to heaven, we are who? What we are here. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. We'll be changed in the twinkling of an eye. When I think of Satan, and where did Satan come from, and why were the angels cast out of the presence of God? Jude chapter 1 verse 6. They did not keep their first estate. They were given, or habitation, they were given something to do by God. And they decided, with that haughty spirit, Lord, do you know who we are? We are so much better than what you have given us. And God cast them out of his presence and reserved them in hell for judgment. Jude 1, verse 6. And I see this attitude here with Joseph's children. But another thing you've got to think about. The greatest generation this country has ever seen was what generation? And this is not, well, when I was a child.
Greatest generation is the one right before the war.
Before, during, and after. Well, we hear that there are bomber planes in Mount Rushmore. What should we do? And the majority of college students, number one, had no earthly idea what Mount Rushmore was. Their second answer, we need to blow it up. There was a haughtiness here. We are so far removed from events in this country, true events, World War II, that we have forgotten. And now people spit on soldiers and insult them. How dare them? Absolute ignorance and arrogance. And so you've got these children who are almost saying, do you not know who we are?
Now holidays are for sale.
Yeah. And I'd shop at Walmart, but they keep moving everything, so I just canceled Christmas. And so here are the people that have such an arrogant spirit. They did not see the blessings of some of the tribulations or challenges they had. Where are they going to get wood for houses? And Joshua says, right in front of you. We've got enemies. What are some of our enemies besides ourselves? Society? You tell me. during COVID why the government allowed liquor stores and bars to stay open and close churches? Does anyone know why? Yeah, they have lobbyists. Their answer was that these alcoholics need the alcohol. Otherwise, what's going to happen to them? The church to this day is still being treated like a bastard child by our government. And for the best part, churches cow down to it, and we should not. We have convictions and we ought to stand up for it. And so, society, how do we deal with society?
Our president just declared June LGBT month
Mm-hmm.
because he said they were being so oppressed. He wanted to help bring knowledge to that.
What percentage of society is what they call alphabet children? That's what they're calling them. GB, L, AB, plus, and they call them the alphabet children. What percentage of America's society? Less than 1%. About 1%.
It's a fad right now, though, too. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people that don't know if they are or not. It's rising the fad.
Okay. Who else? What else is our enemy? Do what? Fear. And brethren, we hear it. We hear it either in private visitations we have or just talking with members. Well, because of this and this and this, I'm not going to do that. They may have had their iron charts or chariots. We have God. Greater is He that is in you than he that is in the world. And then Paul said in 2 Corinthians that when he is weak, it's the greatest time for God to show Himself. The story of Gideon is all about God. God's grace. He filled them with grace. He expanded them because they were true to their faith. And they won battles by beating on cooking utensils. The problem comes is when we do great things, we did it. And what's wrong with that? We didn't do anything except being true. Now, in this lesson, the idea of living to capacity. And I know it's not spiritual, but I use the word bottom dwellers. The bottom dwellers are never, ever going to be blessed. They lay on the bottom. They eat the food that comes to them. They never do anything. And then they don't understand why they're not being blessed. I'll tell you why they're not being blessed. They have no trust in God. God said, if you will expand your faith, I'll fill it with grace. I'll fill it with talents. Just watch me work in you. Oh, poor, pitiful me. Well, I didn't get an invite to Memorial Day cookout. That lets me know how far you are away from this congregation. It's in our bulletin. It's been advertised. Do you not read the bulletin? Someone needed to call me and come get me. We just don't expand ourselves. God says, I have given you, as He closes out here, He said, I've given you an axe. You go lay it at the root of the tree. and chop it down. What stops us from expanding in faith, God filling us with grace, the Holy Spirit, the power that we need to cut the trees down, to farm the land, and to kill our enemies? Complacency? It's too hard. I've picked them up like Paul Bunyan and pulled them out with my Volvo. Haven't tried that one yet.
I'm convinced the devil is whispering in our ears, just like he did Adam and Eve, or mainly Eve. There's nothing wrong with the fruit on that tree.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and eat it. You'll have the wisdom that God has. Do what?
He was standing there. Why was his name not Eve?
Well, because it says that.
No, it says standing with her. You need to read that again.
We just people of tradition. Adam and Eve were together when the statement was made. Adam was standing beside Eve when Eve took that fruit.
Like now.
He does what he's told. Here, eat that.
And she was naked. Okay.
Yeah, a naked woman can make a man do anything. I think it was Donna's commentary on that.
But he is alive and well,
Like,
and whispering in ears and causing the complacency, causing us to change our minds, turn away from God. He is just doing all kinds of mischief. To me, that's our main enemy.
Okay.
He's also telling us, you got time, don't worry about it. I think that's the biggest thing.
That is another. And brethren, here at this congregation, we have baptized a man who died the next day. It took 3 of us to baptize him. The next day he died. Just pick up a paper and look at the obituaries. It's not just old people like Eddie. You start reading, and they're young kids, they're teenagers, motorcycles, wrecks, strokes. I think the devil does. You've got time, you've got time, you've got time. God is saying to these tribes, you have sin. Your sin is that haughty spirit, not trusting me, and that is why you have not been blessed, you have not been expanded. And so let's cut this down. I think what we need to cut down more than anything in our lives is sin. We need to lay that axe head at our own feet and look at our lives, because we are masters at blaming everybody and everything. I do not like what the public school system is teaching our children. But I, as a Christian husband and father, surely I can out-teach the public school system with a good, binding faith. And so he's saying, you're a haughty people. Here's your sin. Here's an axe. Now cut it down. And I think he's using that figuratively to say, you look at your own life. See what's wrong in your own life. Cut it down and then go to work. Have you ever straddled the fence? As a Christian, have you ever just straddled the fence? You got a foot in the church, you got a foot in the world. What was it like?
Just fine as long as you don't see anybody on the other side when you're in the other side. If you're out running with your buddy, and you don't see the preacher, there ain't no problem. If you're out with the preacher, and you don't see your buddy, there ain't no problem. When you get in that mirror, that's when you have a problem.
And some people don't have a mirror. Because I've heard Donna say they don't have a full-length mirror at the house. A denominational preacher, and I'll use this for the church. The only place the Church of Christ don't talk to each other is in the liquor store. They pretend they don't see each other. When we have sin in our lives and we will not chop it down, and it's easy to justify things. But brethren, on the day of judgment, there's not going to be a city bus that comes by and stops here at the Farmington Church of Christ and says, all right, you'll get in. I and I alone am going to be judged before God the Father. There will be no excuses. What have you done with my son?
Get the trees or the sin out of the way, then you can see the blessing. You couldn't see the forest for the trees, but the blessing was there, you just couldn't see it because of the tree. That's the way. If you've ever talked to a recovering alcoholic, if you ever talked to a recovering whatever, they forget.
Mm-hmm.
They're blinded by one thing, that just takes over their lives, and that's their focus. And when you can break that focus of whatever that addiction may be, there comes some sorrow with it because you see the damage you've done along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But there also comes a joy in remembrance of how your life used to be.
Mm-hmm. And I can do that, and it's not the matter of comparing my life to someone else's, but I had good parents. And there were things that I did and didn't do, not so much because the Lord said yea or nay, but because I didn't want to hurt my parents. And there were some things I did that just hurt them. But then I go back and I look at where I am and where some of my friends are in life. And you can go back to crossroads. It may have been that someone, like an intervention, said, we're taking everything away unless you go to an intervention for your drinking or what addiction you have. And it changes your life. I've seen other people that did not need any support whatsoever. They just got to a point, it was such a train wreck, they said, I don't want this anymore, and they stopped it overnight. And I've seen Christians do the same thing. And so I think this is the lesson. You know, you cut the trees down, you can see clearly. And when someone said that last week, all the way home, I was singing, I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. Is that the song? You sure? Okay. And when you make the turn at the Battlefield Park there at Prairie Grove, when I'm going home, usually 4 or 5 o'clock, that sun is right in your face. And I sing it right there. I can see clearly now. And as children of God, we will be the most blessed people when we come before God and say, this is the task that you have given me. Help me to do it to the very best. let me close with this question. If someone decided to do mission work or go on a mission from this congregation, what is the first question that you would ask or would come to your mind? And think about what Joshua's children have said. Every congregation that I have been at, I want to know if someone is doing mission work, wanting to go do mission work, I want to know what they've done at home. Lord, I don't want to knock doors. I don't want to save people in Farmington. I want to go to Africa. I want to go to India. I want to go to South America. God, the job that you've given me at home is just not big enough for me. And if you haven't done work at home, you'll have my opposition to going anywhere. Why in the world would you want to go do mission work anywhere else when you will not do it right here in Farmington? That's where it starts. That's where the proving ground is. Otherwise, it's just a vacation somewhere. And the brethren should not be paying for that. Any questions? I have one plum, one peach, and no watermelons yet. But I've got 100 plants out. On that, I've got to go with the odds. Alicia, you bought me a melon. And I think, and it may have been Foster that brought them up here from, what are they called? Crenshaw? Have you ever had one? Good. I'll challenge Ben to a Crenshaw melon growing contest. And I think, Foster, you bought some up, didn't you? Yeah. I planted some of them. So we'll see. All right, next Wednesday we'll be dealing with hymns. And I have the introduction. And we may go back and look at a quick history of different religious groups who never used instrumental musics and when they started and why. The division between the Church of Christ and the Christian church started between father and son over an instrument. It's now housed at Bethel College. All right, appreciate your attention.
So the way Donna was talking about stuff a little while ago, you better come up with a better name than hymns, maybe hers or something.
But I do keep her away from my fruit trees.